Hey guys, I just wanted to put this before the video starts. If you guys have any kind of I just want to give a massive trigger warning basically. Because this talks about kind of the similarities of Alzheimer's and dementia. It talks about uh addiction and boundaries and other things that might be triggering. So if it is possible that this video could trigger you, please avoid watching it. And you guys all take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hey guys, welcome to diary number 5. I am titling this one of the worst days of my life, or times of my life, because it was. Now, I want to be honest, I've been dreading making this video. Uh, because I know it's gonna be a tough one, but I think it's gonna help me, and I think sometime in the future, I hope that it helps someone else who might be going through something. So October 1st will be the death day anniversary, I guess you could say, uh, which will mark 2 years since my dad passed away. He lost his fight to brain cancer after, I want to say, almost 14 years of fighting. Um, Fighting this disease or whatever you want to call it. I just want to start out by saying, like, losing a parent is one of the worst possible things that anybody in this lifetime can go through. With that being said, I just kind of want to talk about that situation and how it all went down. This is probably going to be about a 2 or 3 part diary entry. You know, I never in my lifetime thought that I would lose either of my parents before I was 30 years old. Not in a million years did I think I would get the news that my parent has cancer, that there's nothing they can do for them, or that they passed away. It's not what you think about. It's not the news that anybody ever wants to get. When I was in school, I had this kid that I used to be really good friends with. We used to be really close. Um, and I know that he has lost both of his parents. Um, he lost his father similar to the same thing that I lost my father to, but at a lot younger age. I couldn't imagine losing both of my parents, let alone one. And I never thought I would be somebody who would get to or have to experience that so early on in life. And I'm aware that 30 years is a long time, but it'll never seem like enough. So one of the most important things that I want to mention before we get too deep into this uh, period is that if you are not even just with a parent, but speaking from experience, I'm going to say with parents, if you are on the outs or you have a relationship that is a little bumpy or you're not speaking with a parent, if it is repairable, please repair it. Because trust me, talking from experience, even though we weren't really on the outs, but we'll get into that. I'm going to take you back to about 3 years ago. Okay. 3 years ago, roughly, is about when I came out trans. And through the first 6 months or so, I didn't really see a lot of people in my life, especially like my grandma, um, John, and there's quite a few others that were actually trying, or at least they didn't feel like they were trying very hard to get my name or my pronouns right. It was like when I would correct them, they would roll their eyes at me and get mad at me. When I was growing up, we were told we were supposed to respect and love one another. So at some point, I had reached a point in life where I started to feel horrible mentally, emotionally, and almost physically. The reason why I want to say that almost part is because for a little while I wanted to unalive myself because people just, it didn't seem like they were trying. And I don't feel like you should get mad at me if I'm correcting you. If you get mad at me for asking for respect and setting boundaries, then that's a problem. That should be a problem for anybody. And I just didn't feel like people accepted me or loved me for who I am, no matter what. I feel like, coming from experience and asking other people who are trans, their opinions on it, like if they cared and they loved me, they would have done whatever it was they could to get it right, practicing, so on and so forth. I follow someone on TikTok who didn't support their child for a really long time until he tried to unalive himself. And so my panic, like, not using the proper name or the proper pronouns or the proper relationship terms per se, like son, nephew, so on and so forth, it was causing panic attacks and anxiety attacks so bad that, like, it almost felt like I could never breathe. I didn't want to be on this earth anymore because it hurt so much. And I was just so tired of, and mainly my grandma and my John were the ones who had me feeling this way. Because in my opinion, it didn't feel like they were trying. And so it got to the point where I was getting angry all the time, panic attacks, so on and so forth. There was a comment that my grandmother had made in the first like couple of months that I had come out trans, and she had said, "You took the only granddaughter away from me," and I thought that that was kind of selfish, and it was. I mean, not thought, like, it was selfish because we're always taught, right? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. And I was taught by that generation who taught us that. My grandparents, uh, you know, they're the ones who taught me that. And they also taught me how to respect others and to love everybody no matter what. And I am so sick and tired of hearing from people say that it's a generational gap thing, because no, it's not. For me, it's just an excuse for you to act the way that you do and think that it's a good enough reason for you to act that way. But this is another topic for another day. So eventually, I ended up having to cut my grandma out of my life, and my dad followed. He's always done that. It used to be, and sometimes I feel like it still is in the family or in your friends' lives or whatever. If you're mad at somebody or you hate somebody, so does that person. And that's just how my dad was. Um, yes, I mean messed up. Uh, but that's just the way that it was. And it's okay. Anyways, it's just something that you end up living with when it happens so often, and we always found our way back to each other. So anyways, about a month or so after cutting my grandma out, my dad and her got into a fight. I received a phone call from my brother Christian, who had called me freaking out, saying that my dad was running along the highway, that something had happened, but he couldn't really make out what was going on because my dad was so scared and crying and running along the highway trying to figure out where the hell he was going to go. So, of course, I ended up calling my dad, trying to figure out what was going on. And he asked me if I would please come and get him. And of course I will. You're my dad. I would do anything for him or anybody, really. But especially my dad. My dad meant a lot to me, still means a lot to me to this day. I mean, if this is an example enough that I would do anything for him, like back in late 2016, my grandma and them were living in Texas with her fiance and my dad, and they got into a fight over something, and my dad ended up calling me saying he didn't want to live there anymore because he kept hearing things getting said about him, and it was just making him uncomfortable. It was making him a nervous wreck. He just couldn't handle it anymore. And obviously, I know there's multiple sides to every story, but like, he's my dad. When he said, "Can you please come and pick me up?" And at this time, I'm living in Idaho, so I took a 28-hour trip with an old friend of mine, and we went and grabbed my dad and brought him back home to Idaho with us. But anyways, and then we ended up moving here to all be close to one another. Like I said, everybody always finds their way back to each other, especially if it is possible. But when I picked him up, I had asked him what was going on, helped him calm down a little bit and just kind of relax and let him know that he was safe, that everything was going to be okay. My grandma was super doped up on, is it opioids pills? Uh, she was super addicted to those back then. And I had found out that my dad was sleeping and my grandmother's sister, Charlene, had decided that she was going to go and smack my dad around, grabbed him by the arm, started cussing at him, yelling at him, again, hitting him in the head. We're talking about somebody like he's had tumors for the brain tumors for like the last several years. He's had multiple surgeries to go in and get those removed. And hitting somebody in the head who has headaches 24/7 almost anyways. What the hell is wrong with you? Um, and so anyways, uh, it took everything in me. Like, she used to live right up the road from me, and it took everything in me not to go to her and have a non-cordial conversation with her because I saw the marks on my dad's head, his face, and the you remember the old saying, the Indian burn, when you would, I don't know why they called it that actually, but like kind of like a rug burn. Like I don't even know how to explain it. Like it looked like that, but with two major handprints on his arm. I had asked my dad if he wanted me to call the police, and uh, he said no. When I asked him why my grandma, aka his mom, didn't do anything about it, he said that he felt like she was just too far out of it to even know what was going on. So I just took him back to my house. Um, so in late December, early January, my dad had been having nosebleeds. And it wasn't just, a nosebleed, hold your head backwards and wait for it to stop. It wouldn't stop. It went on for multiple weeks. I actually remember he laid down to take a nap, and he had asked me to wake him up at a certain time. And when I went in and woke him up, he asked me if I would turn on his light. And when he did turn on his light, his pillow was covered in blood and it was coming from his nose. So I ended up calling and I scheduled a doctor's appointment with his primary care physician. And I was sick, so John had to take him. This was back when COVID was still pretty bad. Yeah, pretty bad. Everybody was still taking precautions in the world. And so when that happened, I wasn't allowed to go to the doctor's office because that's when they were taking temps and stuff still. And I had a fever, and so I knew that the minute I got to the door, they weren't going to let me in anyway. But I ended up having John call me on FaceTime so that I could express my concerns and talk to the doctor because nobody really understood what was going on, even though I had a feeling after about 2.5 weeks of like, I don't even think it was that long. Like it was probably several days of nosebleeds not stopping. When I woke him up from that nap, by the way, and his pillow was covered, I called 911. I was terrified. My dad was terrified. He was freaking out. He started crying. He didn't know what was going on. And so ambulance came. I told him what hospital we wanted him to go to, not just I just know that where he went, his neurosurgeon and neurologist were linked with that hospital. So yeah. So anyways, get to this doctor's appointment. And this doctor says, "Oh, it's just allergies." And I immediately started freaking out because again, all these doctors are linked when you're going through the same system. Like they can see his medical issues, they can see the surgeries that we've had, we can see the medicine, they can see the medications that you're on, all that good stuff. So when he said that, I said there is no way that it's allergies, and this has been going on. So probably about 4 or 5 days in, when I woke him up from that nap, and it was worse than I had seen it because it was gradually getting worse. And so I was his right eye is starting to come like bulge out of his head. Ugh. He was losing his eyesight. He used to play sports games, Madden, 2K, FIFA, all of that stuff. He loved playing those games, but he could barely watch TV because that's how bad and how quickly his eye was losing its sight. Like he couldn't even get tears to come out of it. Like that's, and so, and he was falling a lot. Um, I kind of had a general idea of what might be going on with the nosebleeds, but when the doctor had said it was allergies, that he was just going to prescribe him some nasal spray, like I about lost my shit because there is no way that you have a nosebleed for almost 2 weeks straight, and it's because of allergies in January. I will admit that the first few days, first 4 or 5 days, I thought maybe it had something to do with the cold weather because when a lot of the times, like when our noses dry out, they bleed. So obviously I would prefer that it was allergies and that a quick medication or an antibiotic or something would have taken care of it. But anyways, I called my dad's neurologist office and I begged for an MRI. I sent a message to the doctor. He ended up doing an emergency. He put in for an emergency MRI. I think that was done probably within the same week. A few days after his MRI, his neurologist calls and asks for me or my dad. And I said, well, this is his son. He was sleeping at the time, so I didn't want to wake him up or bother him. And he had told me that he was going to refer us to his neurosurgeon. And I said, why? What's going on? And he said, well, he's got 2 brain tumors that are growing on his brainstem, 2 brand new ones. None of them have ever been cancerous before these 2. And he said they're coming in fast. They're big and they're coming fast. So the reason for the referral to the neurosurgeon was to figure out what the next. When I got this call, like I knew, I kind of had a feeling what was going to come across, but at the same time was hoping that I was wrong. And at the time, him and my grandma still hadn't been talking. I hadn't been talking with her either. And so I hadn't told my dad yet. I got off the phone with the neurologist, and then I called John and I asked him if I should wait till he got home to do it. To tell him. Well, I chose not to wait because my dad, in that moment, I wanted to call and get a hold of my grandma and tell her what was going on. But I knew in the end that it was my dad's choice for her to know, not mine. So my dad ended up coming and to the kitchen and asking if everything was okay, and I said, no, I need to talk to you. I think he also knew what was coming next. So, because I took the call in the kitchen, when I found out that it was the neurologist, because just in case I broke down, I could have a minute, because we had a curtain in there that kind of blocked off parts of the kitchen, because my office used to be in the dining room because I had given him my room so that he could have his own room and his own privacy. But I ended up telling my dad what was going on, and I asked if he would like me to get a hold of his mom. And he said yes, and that she deserved to know. And then he ended up basically falling onto me, grasping onto me, and just started bawling his eyes out. And I started to cry too, but I was trying not to show it because I didn't want to upset him more, and I wanted to more or less reassure him that everything, was going to be okay and that we would, get through all of this stuff together. I got him calmed down and then started trying to figure out a way to get a hold of my grandma. And I don't even remember how I got a hold of her. I think I had her number, and I ended up calling her and leaving a voicemail. Which she then called back. So I got her on the phone, told her everything that was going on, and we ended up planning a visit with her because she was in the hospital. And kind of learned what was going on with her, but ended up you know, going up, to see her after or before his neurosurgeon's appointment. I didn't really give the neurosurgeon's office time to really call after the neurologist had sent over the referral. It was already his surgeon, so I knew that it would be okay to call. I had called and asked if I could get him in for an emergency appointment. They got him in probably 2 or 3 days later, after I placed the call to them, because I had called them and just said, please, like, I in my brain, when you're told your parent has cancer, you believe that there's no time to waste, and I still believe in that. Like, if you give somebody a diagnosis like that, like, there's no time to waste. Like, let's figure it out, because unless you've gone through it, you don't understand what kind of stress or anxiety that you're putting, first off, the patient through. Not only the patient, but the family as well, but more so the patient. Um, and obviously, of course, this would follow what would be one of the worst times or worst days of my life. We ended up going to this appointment. My grandma was still in the hospital, so she wasn't really walking. That's another story for another time. We'll get into that. Maybe I'll bring her on to talk about it as well. So obviously, I've been praying up till the doctor even came in. To be honest, I got my grandma on one phone, and John had my brother on another one. We were all on FaceTime, um, waiting for the surgeon to come in. And like I said, I kept praying and praying and praying and praying. Please give us some good news. Not me, him. Um, and as soon as she walked in, I asked her what the steps were. Like, I wasted no time. Like I said, to me, time is precious. Time is short. Um, and you could already tell, like, in her face, that the news she was about to give was not easy for her to give either. I feel like it was probably just as hard for her to give that news as almost as it was for us to hear it. And the words that came out of her mouth, I tell you, I felt like I was on another universe, and like I was just having a bad nightmare, hoping that I would wake up soon. But she had said that there's nothing more that I could do, that with all the previous surgeries and all the scarring on his head, there was nowhere for her to go in. And had she had tried, he probably would have passed away from an infection, because it wouldn't have. And when we had asked her what the survival chances was if he were to try a surgery, she said next to none, and again reiterated that he would most likely die from an infection. We ended up asking how much time he might have left. She had said 6 months, maybe a year. She put in an emergency referral to the the radiation cancer treatment office, and from the neurosurgeon's office. She also, because of his eye, we had asked if there was anything that could be done, and she had expressed that the tumor is what was causing that. And it was also causing the tumors were causing him to go blind, and for his eye to do that, and they were also causing his nosebleed. But she put an emergency referral to an eye surgeon that was either down or upstairs, and to the radiation. I don't believe that we got into the radiation. We got into the eye surgeon, like, within 30 minutes of that referral being put in. Like, we didn't even make it out of the office. We ended up going to another office. So we went down to the eye surgeon's office to see what could be done about his eye, if there was anything that could be done. And they ended up recommending that they sew his eye shut, because if he managed to get better, he would have a better chance of getting his eyesight back, because they didn't want it to completely dry out. Because had it not been sewed and he did get better, he would have never seen out of that eye again. At least the chances were high. And I could tell my dad was not acting like himself. Like, which I'll get into that here in just a second. But like, uh, since he was falling a lot, the neurosurgeon had recommended a walker or wheelchair when he was walking and stuff because he just didn't have balance. Which the tumor was also what was causing that. So we had, got him that from the neurosurgeon's office. They had brought up a wheelchair for us to take him down. We got to the office and he went to go stand up. And I said, Dad, what are you doing? Do you need something? And he just like swung his hand at me. Uh, and like just started yelling at me and John. And even some of the people that were in the office. And he didn't even know where we were. And this is like where like this gets hard and stuff. Like he got up, walked away, and every time I would try to grab him, like, hey, where are you going? This is only employees are allowed. And he had walked into this waiting room that had a door on it and said, I need to go to the bathroom, and tried to shut the door. And I was like, Dad, this isn't the bathroom. This is a waiting room. All while my heart is breaking. I couldn't understand why he was mad, and I couldn't understand why he was mad, and I didn't get it. I knew he was sick, but I didn't know what to expect. He was calling me names and like I said, swinging at me. Which is not like my father at all. Like my dad is so loving and so kind, that he would never do anything. But towards the end of that eye appointment, I knew that that was the cause. I, ended up calling my grandma to tell her what's going on and asking her what I should do. She said go up to the neurosurgeon's office, have John sit with him, and try to see if they couldn't help, because I felt helpless. I didn't know what to do. And I knew that he wasn't in the right state of mind, which was the scary part. But we eventually got him calmed down. We went up to the hospital after. Actually, no, my grandma had been moved to a rehabilitation center, and so we had gone up there to see her. So, and the very next day or the day after was when the appointment for his radiation was supposed to be. So we ended up going to that appointment. My grandma got an early discharge from rehabilitation, was put on a feeding tube and all of that good stuff. So when we went to his radiation appointment, she couldn't go. I'll get more into all of this too, because she was too weak. So we ended up just having her on the phone when we went to this doctor's office for this meeting, or for the conversations to try to figure out what the plan would be. They wanted to start radiation immediately, and it went 5 days for about 6 or 7 weeks, is what they were shooting for. I pulled the doctor aside and like asked questions without my dad like in earshot, because I didn't want him to get upset again, and I didn't know what had happened or what was going on with him. At the eye surgeon's office. So I had explained to the radiation doctor, or the cancer doctor, what happened, and he had told me to treat this as if it was Alzheimer's and dementia combined. And he also said he was super honest, he was super kind, he was super empathetic and sympathetic. That he mentioned that there was a high chance that the radiation wouldn't work, to probably prepare for the worst. So at that point, I kind of wondered if maybe he was doing the radiation to try to give all of us hope, or maybe to just give him a little bit of hope. But even after he told me there was a high chance that he probably wouldn't survive, that the radiation wouldn't work, I had some faith that maybe it might. I prayed it would. I almost felt like I was begging for it to work. We ended up heading home. And my grandma had told me to give my dad some melatonin to try to help him sleep, because I can almost promise you he didn't sleep for days after we found out or that other tumors were coming back. He hadn't been sleeping, like I said, for days at a time, which probably didn't help what the doctor basically called hallucination. Um, uh, he considered what happened at the eye doctor's office to be, kind of like a hallucination, and to not really understand what was going on. So I ended up giving him his meds and then gave him some melatonin. I later found out, though, that he wasn't taking his meds, he was hiding them, which probably didn't help anything either. Um, but anyways, none of us had been to sleep probably in almost 2 days. At least John and I. My dad, I can assure you again, has been up more days than just 2. Um, and I was talking on the phone with my grandma, letting her know, like, I gave him his meds. I don't know what to do. Like, what if he tries to get up and leave or whatever? And so, anyways, I finally got laid down. I got comfortable, and was still just talking to my grandma. I think we were both trying to just make each other feel better with everything. And, so anyways, um, I hear John yelling. He tells me he's going to go take the trash out. And I hear him start to yell, and he's like, "What are you doing?" Um, and I yell, "What the hell is going on out there?" And ended up jumping up and walking towards the hallway to walk towards him to figure out what was going on. Well, my dad's charging at me in his shoes. He's got his jacket on, like he's fully dressed, and shoves me like I'm standing probably right in front of the back door, and he shoves me up against the wall, or shoves me up against the wall and out of the way, and then opens the back door and uh tries to leave. Now let me express that we live in the middle of nowhere. We're in farm country. So had he had actually escaped, I guess. Escape sounds bad. More or less, we were just trying to keep him in the home and safe, because we knew that we had to treat this like Alzheimer's, dementia, and um, also with his hallucinations. So I guess those kind of go hand in hand together. But anyways, I yelled at John. I said, "Please come in, like stop him, and just hold him. Be careful, but please hold him. I'm gonna call 911 because I don't know what to do." I didn't know what to do. John didn't know what to do. I got on the phone with 911, explained the events of the past few days. Um, and this is before the radiation appointment. So, anyways, John's holding him down. I'm on the phone with 911, begging them to please, please, please hurry, because let me mind you, my dad was strong. Not just on the inside, on the outside as well. Like, he put up a fight, a pretty big fight, like, and nobody was trying to hurt him. We were just trying to keep him safe, because had he, like left and we didn't notice, he probably never would have been found. And if he would have been found, um, he probably wouldn't have been alive. Um, so anyways, I beg the police and the paramedics and stuff to please, or I'm begging the dispatcher to please tell them to hurry. And I could tell that she did, because you could hear sirens coming from a couple of miles away. And uh again, reality still isn't setting in. I'm probably not even snapped out of whatever world I thought that I was in. Like I said, felt like a nightmare. Um and I had so the cops come to the backyard to try to help him, get him to calm down and try to figure out what's going on. And he thought he heard me say that I was going to pack his stuff and throw him and his stuff out at 3 o'clock in the morning, which I would never do that to anybody. Um anyways, so I think that's when realization sunk in that we genuinely do have to treat this like Alzheimer's and dementia. Because I was on the phone with my grandma. I'm like, Grandma, I have to go. I have to call 911. I don't know what else. I don't know what else to do. So upon talking to the police, after the paramedics had taken my dad to the ambulance to kind of assess him and try to figure out what's going on, which they knew because they could see his medical records. But we had a conversation with the police, and we had kind of agreeably expressed at the same time that, like, had he had left and we didn't know, we probably wouldn't know where he was. And there's nothing but woods for miles, forest up the road that is huge. Mark Twain Forest is pretty big. After they had examined him in the ambulance, they decided to take him to the ER, or to the hospital, to be monitored and to basically keep him safe. And he ended up leaving. Like, we got up there, we probably got up there maybe before or around the same time as my dad. He didn't want to see me. He didn't want to see John. He was mad because didn't know what was going on, but he was mad that we had taken him up to the hospital, or they had, out of concern for his safety and for his health. So they monitored him. They gave him meds for pain. They took us to a small waiting room, literally big enough for maybe 4 or 5 people, and just let us stay in there for most of the night, while they ran tests. The doctor comes in and says, I don't know what I can do to hold him. And I said, please, he is a danger, not a danger, but he's not safe at our home because we don't have cameras to see what direction he goes if he were to leave and we didn't know. Like, we didn't know. I just said that I didn't think that it was a good idea for him to come home, to please find some way to be able to keep him here until we can figure something out. This is when my grandma started telling, the nurses and social workers and stuff, like, I can't stay here. I have to leave. My son needs me. Well, the next day I get a phone call from the hospital caseworker saying, hey, have you heard from your father? And I'm like, no, why? We had come home to eat, shower, try to sleep. We didn't sleep. We ended up eating, showering, and going right back up there. But anyways, she says, well, we can't find him. And I'm like, excuse me? I don't know how somebody walks out, like, gets IVs and stuff out of them and leaves. I don't understand that. But because of that, they ended up putting him on a 3-day or 72 to 3 to 4 day, like, medical hold or whatever it is they called it. I think they kind of called it like a silver alert. It was kind of like a silver thing. I don't know. I don't even remember that. We ended up showing back up to the hospital. My grandma went with. And of course, she had to be in a wheelchair because, like I said, again, a story for another time. But I will never forget how hateful the lady at the front desk of this hospital was. I'm gonna say the hospital. Oh, no, I'm not. I go up to the front counter, and by the way, I had found out my dad left, went through the a whole parking lot onto another main drag, and he escaped the hospital, I guess you could say. And when the security officer found him, he didn't even know where he was. He didn't know what was going on. Nothing. So let me explain what happened with this lady, right? I had walked up to the front desk, and I said, can I please see my dad? I need to see him and make sure he's okay. He's dying. He has cancer. She looks at me and yells and says, he's not dying. Stop that shit. She didn't say shit, but she said stop that because he's not dying. And I said, actually, yes, he is. You can look in his medical records and say otherwise. And I ended up saying, I don't know what the hell your damn problem is, but this is not how you treat a family who is going through something like this. And I looked at the other guy and I said, I want to speak to the charge nurse and I want to speak to the whoever is in charge of this damn hospital, because what she just did wasn't right. And there was a lady standing next to me and behind me who watched that happen as well. She was not very happy at all. She actually, the lady behind me, refused to go up to the counter to that lady because, yeah, uh, wow, that was rough. And when I had a conversation, having a conversation with the charge nurse while waiting to speak to someone higher up in the hospital, and the lady walks by and starts telling me that I'm telling lies and stuff. Somebody else said, no, he's not. Um, because I just witnessed it. And also they have cameras, especially at the front doors of the ER. They're gonna see what happened anyways. That person was awful and had terrible bedside manner, and I can promise you, she shouldn't be working in a hospital, in a doctor's office. That's somewhere where you should be working with patients and learn where sometimes you have to have empathy and sympathy. Um, but anyways, so also upon speaking with like the caseworker and stuff, she had mentioned that it was up to me where my dad, like what we did with my dad, because I was his next of kin, and I was listed at the time as I don't even know what it's because at the time he wasn't in the right mind, and that's why they had said that it was up to me. I personally thought that he should have gone to a nursing home or retirement home or something where he could be safe, be given meds for pain and just all of that, because it was getting bad and it was getting bad fast. Um my grandma had said we can't do that to him. We shouldn't do that to him. So we ended up compromising, and I said, well, maybe she wanted him to go home with her because she knew that I lived in the middle of nowhere. She had woods for miles, but a lot of people around that area knew him. Nobody in my area knew him but the landlord, and um, chances of people seeing him at her place were higher. So we had compromised. We ended up putting in a deadbolt where it locked on both sides, where you had to have a key to lock it and to unlock it, going in or out, just for his safety. We also decided to put motion sensors or motion alarms or whatever you want to call them on the doors, so that if he did try to escape or leave in the middle of the night, something like that would go off. And we even talked about like getting cameras for the inside and outside, because just in case he got up and did try to leave, we might be able to see, or he managed to escape or get out of the house, we could see the directions he went in, and that might help. Or, because like I said, he was getting violent. I wanted to be able to make sure like he wasn't hurting my grandma or himself, for that matter. So that's what we ended up doing. Um, the hospital thought it was a bad idea. I even thought that it was, kind of I didn't think that it was a good idea either, but um I know that it wasn't his fault that his sickness is what was causing him to, be the way that he was. I know that that was not my father. Um, that the cancer or whatever you want to call it was turning him into somebody none of us really knew, which sucks. I will get into more of this in another episode. I just want to express. I got a few more things, and then I'm gonna head out, and I'll see you guys in the next part, of course. But when I was 11 years old, I found my grandfather passed away on the couch. Um, and I will talk about that in another uh video at some point. But my grandpa was my second dad. He was my best friend. He was my whole world. My step grandpa died in my arms when I was about 25 years old. Um, I was fighting to keep him breathing. Again, I will talk about this in another episode as well, but there's a point to me telling you this, because right in front of my eyes, I was watching my dad die. I was watching my dad turn into somebody that I didn't recognize. Like, I knew that he was my dad, but like um what the cancer was doing to him was just uh I don't even know. I don't even know the right words for that, but you get what I'm saying, I hope. But the full reason that it kind of went this way, I mean, and I say this because I just couldn't watch my dad die. Or at least I didn't want to right away. And I'll explain this some, but it isn't the full reason that it went this way, but my grandma and I just still couldn't get along. She was still being extremely toxic, super mean, still being rude and disrespectful to my name and pronouns, and I just couldn't do it. Like, I was starting to have panic attacks again, and within a couple of weeks, I was already ready to unalive myself. I made the decision to step away again, um, and made it clear that if she needed to get a hold of me for my dad, or if my dad wanted to get a hold of me, that I wanted to stay in touch. Um, for a couple of weeks, I didn't try to reach out. Um, and I want to also express that my brother even sent her a Facebook message, probably a day or two, maybe even the same night or the day after. I just said, "Screw it, I'm done." And my dad followed suit again, but at this time, as my therapist had said, like, he was he didn't know who he was. He probably didn't even know who I was. Um, for a while. Um, or at all. But she never responded to his message either. Months. But uh probably 3 or 4 weeks later, my mom and brother came down. We went and picked them up and brought them down here for like a week. To kind of have some vacation time, and we drove by there because we were gonna go by and see them and talk to them together. And there was a white vehicle in the driveway, and I knew who it was. And I knew that I wouldn't be safe knocking on the door. None of us would have been, actually. I've seen how violent I've seen the threats and how violent my grandma's sister could get towards the kids that she fostered when I was younger. And yeah. So, anyways, this was late at night. So I assumed that this person was probably staying there. Um, I tried to call, I tried to send messages. I never got an answer. Um, so the episode, or not the episode, the conversation that I had with the radiation doctor was that he had expressed, when he's having an episode where he is mad, even if it's for something that happened 15, 20 years ago, to just kind of step away and try not to stress him out or do anything to make him angrier, or um, just kind of walk away. Um, like I said, they never called me. I sent text messages. I tried calling. I got blocked on Facebook. I couldn't even message on there. I didn't want to watch him die, but a few weeks later, I realized that I wanted to be there up until the very last breath. Um, like I said earlier, when our family is mad at somebody, everybody's mad at them. I used to be this way. I am not anymore. I choose positivity, peace, happiness. Um, I promise that being bitter is not the way to go. Um, if you guys sat through this whole episode number 5, I appreciate it so much, and I hope that in the future that this might find somebody else some comfort. But for now, um, there will be episode 6 and 7 will be continuing with this situation. So again, if you guys stayed and listened, thank you. I really appreciate it. Take care.